Climate risk is one of the biggest challenges right now in the emerging risk space. Earlier this year, world-renowned naturalist Sir David Attenborough, in a speech to the UN Security Council, stated that climate change is the biggest threat modern humans have ever faced. Corporations and nations are making commitments to become net zero carbon neutral in order to tackle this challenge. Yet with all the information available on this issue, what are the signals that one should be looking at and paying attention to in order to prepare for the future? Hi, I'm Bruce Choi, and today I want to talk to you about a topic that I'm very passionate about: climate risk. I'll explain what I'm watching closely as a professional risk manager and being concerned about this emerging risk. This strategic foresight approach that I personally take combines aspects of my banking and capital markets risk management experience with my past career as an environmental engineering academic. The World Economic Forum has climate action failure, biodiversity loss, and extreme weather events all in their top 10 high-impact risks facing the world today. Indeed, novel ways of raising the issue of degrading our planet has been taken all around the world. Of course, the biggest initiatives in saving the planet concerns the greenhouse gas effect and carbon dioxide emissions. Net zero carbon neutrality targets are being set up by corporations, industries, and nations. Yet with all the noise surrounding climate change, how does one discern a signal about where the world is heading in the future? Allow me to walk through the 3 steps that I use: future scenarios, backcasting, and signal identification. Step 1. The 4 futures. Where we land on 2 key factors will lead to very different outcomes. Firstly, will the post-COVID-19 world become more globally cooperative, or will it be more fragmented into individual interests, be that interests of wealth or security first? The second factor is the industrialization of innovative technologies that will actually solve the carbon footprint problem. Global energy demands will continue to grow as the world keeps on growing in its population. The science either currently exists or is near commercial viability, which could transform our current unsustainable ways. Yet they will cause significant disruption to the status quo, which could lead to political interests to slow down the migration from the labs to the main street. Not putting any probabilities on these 2 factors, the extremes set up 4 potential futures. The ideal target of cooperation and the scientific nous to be able to industrialize our technology and innovations brings to us what I've called the green world. The green world is the scenario where we've managed to limit our global warming to 1.5 degrees, and with that we've managed to stabilize the permafrost and ice cap melts and our global weather systems. Looking at the opposite quadrant, where the world has fragmented and we've failed to industrialize our technologies, we have a bit of a wrath of God scenario, where the global warming can go up to 4 degrees. Floods, storms, bushfires, and other extreme weather events will increase in frequency. Insurance starts to become unviable as a business as risk diversification becomes difficult, and the responsibility for resilience is then pushed down onto an individual level. The other 2 scenarios are quite different adaptation scenarios. One which I've titled The Lost Generation, where the economic opportunities are lost for the youth in rural areas, and older generations are hanging on to their existing social contracts. We'll see social security increases, wage stagnation, and a general slowdown of the economy. The economic slowdown will be borne by all, but unevenly so. And the 4th scenario, where unfortunately we've not arrested climate change, however, our increase in technologies have allowed us to adapt. Here is a scenario which I've called the rise of the megacities. Technologies for food supply means less reliance on weather-prone rural areas, where we see proteins and vegetables grown at scale in factories. And resilience measures are focused in the economically viable high population centres. Arguably, this is one of the most interesting scenarios, given the impact on urban planning and social structure to adopt to the extreme urban migration. As a risk manager, one should deeply examine all 4 potential futures. Now let's take one of these futures and explore more with steps 2 and 3. Step 2. Backcasting the future. Being an optimist, we'll examine the green world scenario first, and to see whether it is indeed actually viable. Energy experts at Shell and MIT have produced a backcast of what it would mean for the US to be able to achieve net zero by 2050. And to caveat, it is not a forecast. It's not an expectation or a prediction. Rather, it is a hypothetical solution given what we know about the science and technology of today. So why look at the US? Well, it's currently the largest producer of oil and gas in the world. It is also the second largest consumer of energy in the world. Its scale, significance, and global leadership means that without doubt it can be viewed as a bellwether, lead indicator signal. Looking at the solution map, the pathway to the green world is a viable, albeit a narrow path with very small margins of error. It shows that both economically and technologically it is viable, but cautions that it calls for fundamental change in the way the US energy systems will work, and this will be extremely challenging. To quote from the report, the energy transition may create frictions and dislocations within society. Losses in the transitions will undoubtedly be felt deeply. The transition to a net zero will look and feel different to different parts of the US. The shift in the energy supply from fossil fuels to lower carbon energy sources means that states and regions that produce energy today may not necessarily be the same in the future, creating opportunities and challenges. To sustain progress, it's important to ensure the economic, social, and environmental benefits are obvious to a broad range of Americans. And part 3, the signals. With the benefit of a detailed backcast, I now look at what signals, what early warning indicators will tell me whether we're on or off track for this particular future. Personally, the lead indicators I am paying attention to are liquid fuel demand in steep decline by the middle of the decade, and the end of the sale of internal combustion engine cars by the middle of next decade. Americans love their cars. It's part of the national image. Ford has committed in Europe to either have electric or plug-in hybrid cars only by 2026. In the US, Ford has committed quite a lot of money to the study and development of electric vehicles. It'll be interesting to see just how far they take it and how quickly. The second indicator I'm looking at is biofuel blending into avgas. All airlines have signed up for a 2% target by 2025. Yet this is a long way from the 2040 pathway in which we require a 33% target from the US airlines. Overseas airlines have been setting the standard. Qantas has flights between LA and Australia using a 50-50 blend right now. But the skinny profit margins in a sector that has been devastated by COVID-19, watching the actions of the US airline industry will be a clear signal about which future we'll be heading towards. Personally, I find it scientifically fascinating where we are with hydrogen and the use of that as a fuel. The expectation is for hydrogen trucks to be on the road by the 2030s, and the first hydrogen-fueled planes to be up and flying in the early 2040s. So hydrogen to me is fascinating in two particular fields. First, in engine development. We need to develop engines that can handle hydrogen, both for motor and for airlines. And the second area of development is the carbon capture and storage. Hydrogen right now is made by the cracking of methane, which is a byproduct that actually produces carbon dioxide. So this is not actually reducing our carbon footprint. So the requirement is to move from what is called a grey hydrogen, which produces the carbon dioxide, to blue hydrogen, where the carbon dioxide is gone through a further process and is captured and stored. By the early 2030s, we will need to see solar output greater than that of natural gas. This will mean a massive expansion of the solar energy generating capacity, which will likely come from states not traditionally viewed as energy providers. What I'm looking for here is policies that will encourage the initial capital outlay that will be essential to meet this ambitious growth. And finally, the last indicator I'm looking at is where the US moves on carbon pricing. The hypothetical backcast scenario here sets the economic incentive with a carbon price of $140. This is markedly different to where the carbon pricing is now in the US, and this is a very clear and simple signal for everyone to watch. As a bonus signal, I'm also seeing where things are going with nuclear power. The technology for small-scale nuclear fission reactors at much lower temperatures than what we had in the technologies in the 1970s exists today, but is not really implemented. I'm not sure whether the US will be one that will lead this particular challenge, but it will be an interesting one to see what happens worldwide. The combination of all these indicators helps me tell if the net zero 2050 target is still possible, or whether it is a long lost pipe dream. So hopefully this gives you an example of how I holistically see a complex subject like climate risk using an emerging risk framework. Analysis and preparation of the other three futures is also prudent. It should be done in a similar fashion, taking the future scenario and backcasting it, working out the details of how you get there. However, the focus will not just be on the technology solutions, which I concentrated on for this green world scenario, but also on tough social policy discussions that will likely have to be had. Having identified the indicators to pay attention to helps give you a clear signal for you and your organization whether there needs to be either a refocus on efforts or to start activating contingencies in order to be future ready.